Hey guys, I'm FatBuddyCat, and this is my custom vintage mini bike.
I've never done this one before, guys. We got a blank slate. I have a few ideas, but in order to see if any of those ideas are going to work, or if they're even feasible, we're going to have to take some parts off of this thing. I'm not too concerned, because a lot of them might not be going back on. We're going to start somewhere easy. I think I'm going to get those handlebars off if I can. Well, I know we can because it's going to happen, right? I'll take my controls off, remove as much as I can. I'll probably just take the caliper. The whole thing is one unit. Once it's away from the rotor, I'll make sure not to squeeze it. Zip tie it up and put it to the side. Maybe we'll start a new box for this project. Another good thing, this thumb throttle, it could be updated, but it does work, and it's worked for however long it's been on there, so might as well keep that going. We'll try to save what we can while we go. We'll see what we can do. So, I'm taking the brake lever off these nice painted chrome handlebars. And, did I mention this bike was missing the tensioner system? And the way you got the thing to stay where it needed to was to tack weld the axle nut to the actual swing arm. That's on the other side too, but we're also not that concerned, so I might have to pull out the big herc, give those a zip zang, and take the whole back wheel off, because these are pretty much rusted and stripped out. Okay. Look at that. The axle isn't even the right size for the swing arm. So, might be an original tire of sorts, but probably not the wheel or anything else back here. So, I was a little suspicious when I saw the smaller than 35 chain, but whatever, is what it is. I'm just going to take the whole back wheel off, and we'll set it right down on the swing arm. That'll be fine. What I can tell you is, for the size, this thing is very heavy. With a little bit of extra effort and some help from my friends, I got this back wheel off, and the axle is very small. It's petite at best. The whole assembly, though, is unusually heavy. So, who knows? This might be an older wheel off of something, because I don't think these parts are all that substantial. Moving on. Now, when I mentioned this guy I purchased this from was an engineer, I'm not downplaying that. He really was, or is, and he made some of these parts, okay? And the way this worked was he drilled a hole down there, okay? and that carried the axle. The axle then went through the bearings in the wheel. So this could have been sitting on the top or bottom. It wouldn't even have to be really centered. And as long as it was, you know, kept from moving anywhere, then everything would just keep on rolling on the bearings as usual. This bolt here kept this whole thing from moving. It also is the brake adapter. It's pretty neat. Homeboy's zip tie game was crucial too. So now we have a hydraulic brake. We have a handle with a reservoir. I didn't squeeze it, but when I removed it, the pad seemed to have got a little closer. But this thing's pretty heavy duty. That metal's not. Not that it's not heavy duty, it's just not heavy in weight. This little horseshoe is, though. It looks like he has a custom tensioner. Boy, that looks familiar. I think I'll go ahead and get that off while I'm here too. Looks like it's partially there. That wasn't even finger torqued. I'm not sure if this is a come up. We'll put it in the pile anyway. I'm going to leave the fenders on there for now, but I did also cut the Altacarinos up front, so get that off and see what magic lies beneath. So the tell-all for me was that the same implements of destruction were required, and all of a sudden it struck me, this is the same hardware. So we have some spacers and bearings. Okay, that one I don't even think is the same size as, no, that's definitely bigger. Okay, so the way this worked, the spacer sat inside here, crushed up against a bunch of washers. This spacer that's slightly bigger but closer than that one held it somewhat centered to wherever this was welded to yon washer that is still embedded in the fork, because it's actually supposed to look like that. I get my chisel, ball peen, bang those off. Shouldn't be a whole lot of cyborg meat left. Big Herc tuned them up pretty good. Well, Mini Bike Mike definitely showed up for school on tack welding day. Those suckers are on there good. It's not really gonna matter. I'm gonna go outside, fetch my metal bench, get it set up in the garage. A little bit of WD-40. We might be able to avoid surgery altogether. I'll tell you, you know you got a good one when you can basically lift the entire bike up from the headlight mount. Next thing I'm going to do, remove my throttle, and I think depending on how the cable looks, ooh, this one has a barrel on the end. I'm just going to take the whole cable off. If this was frayed, I would leave it connected to this linkage. because that would basically be its last attempt at being used again. I'm having a difficult time trying to get to this screw on the cable stop. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and remove the gas tank. This still has a good amount of fuel in it, so let's take it right outside. More room for activities? I can get in here, no problem. Not sure what those holes are for. This thing is 50 years old, so that looks like an angle grinder gone wild, and I'm well aware of this old repair up here. Let me get that cable off. Throttle too. Well, on second thought, I think I'm just going to take the cable out of the housing and leave this throttle with these handlebars. Alright, looks like we have two good ends. I'll take that W. I can probably fit my wrench up in there without removing the fender. We're open for action up top. One original fender and bracket. I got my nut in my hand. It looks like this bolt just passes through the neck and this lower crown here. So next time I see it, we should have a fork in the pile. Now that's a bolt. It's pretty serious. Just going to take a close look and make sure that there's no washers or anything that I think are going to fall out. Maybe some crusty bearings, some old acorns or something. Who knows? There we go. Wham bam blah jam. Vintage suspension. Okay, we're a few days down the road and our parts pile has turned into a parts box. Back to the mini bike. I think the next thing I'd like to see come off is going to be this seat. It's probably bolted on somehow. Yep. So I'm not even sure what's on the other end of those. Some kind of nuts, some kind of inserts. Who knows? But we're gonna find out. So just like every other part thus far, there's some resistance. That's going to be the rear fender and maybe the shocks, but I'm going to at least get that fender out of the sitch. With the rear fender out of the way, I was easily able to snatch these two bolts and washers off the bottom. Let's see what treasures lie beneath, huh? Seems to be self-adhered. Ooh, chocolate. Hey, look at that. At least somebody was proud of their work. I'll have to check that out. Looks like a piece of wood. some duct tape. Not sure what's inside of those. Some carpeting. Looks like some legitimate plastic bag. I don't know, guys. We'll have to get in here. Some foam. Insulation of sorts. Maybe some sill seal. Whatever's in here, guys, this thing weighs, I'm not kidding you, well over 8 pounds. Going on 10. She's got some fluid in her. Or at least retained something over the years. This seat pan is part of the frame, and it's actually a very important part, the same as the engine plate is. So this is in very good condition. The jack shaft and everything is there. Not the original setup, but all the cyborg meat is still with us. Look to be original welds and such. So the next thing, I think I'm going to pull the motor, guys. I'll look for master links on these chains. Oh, there's one right there. That's always a good place to start. What I can tell you is this is not original, and it's no good to me. So we're going to 86 that right away. I believe this is the original shaft that was on this, okay? The only thing is the threaded section has been cut off. The previous owner claimed that it might have derailment issues. I wouldn't doubt that. Over on this side, you can see the original bolt, washer, bearing, whatever they got set up there. But even in its condition, it spins very, very smooth. To get the motor off, it's just standard nuts and bolts. Looks like a few washers, but nothing I can't handle. I took the engine out and placed it on one of my orange chairs for safekeeping at the moment. We really got to take a closer look at that. At this point, I'm not sure what is going to be going on with these pegs, but I'm not going to be using these ones, and if I do, I would have to repair them anyway. So I'll just go ahead and leave those there for a reference point. I can, however, get this jack shaft off. I believe the only thing holding this together is a set screw. Okay, so it was actually 2 set screws, but to make this easier, I'm going to try to I really can't punch the key back too far. Well, I think it's hammer time. Right about there. I actually had a better idea. Now that the motor's off, I can just flip it upside down. I found the master link in this rusty little chain. This is some sort of a pit bike chain. Kind of obsolete. in the mini bike world, so we're gonna get rid of that. I think this sprocket has a set screw, and that one on that little collar seems loose, so we get that off, and then it might be hammer time. Okay, this is actually super cool. The original shaft is actually threaded on the inside. So this is kind of like a cap having this bolt and washer on the end, and that kind of holds everything in place. Over on this side, you see that little nubberino down there? I'm not sure what that is yet, but it's very solid. It'd be hard to get to. The sprocket seems to be stuck, so instead of trying to bash on this now, I'm going to try to get it from this end, and hopefully this sprocket will come loose. Yep, that was definitely the way to go. Came out pretty easily. Only a couple bang bangs with it. It's actually a little bit bent. I took this sprocket and pushed it back and forth, and you can see it a little bit up in here. And when you try to move the sprocket back and forth, you can feel it. Where this was on the bottom of the bike, pretty close to the lowest point of the frame, safe to say this thing took some abuse in its day. It definitely absorbed some sort of brunt direct impact, that's for certain. The bearings will come out, and those are going to get replaced, so I can leave them there for now. It's not going to hurt anything. Before I flip this over, I want to take a closer look at this stock swing arm. Okay, somehow this has stood the test of time. Right around 50 years now. So from this end, you can see that it's a much smaller bolt. We have a nut over here and a head over here. So safe to say that that comes all the way through. There's a couple little metal bushings, and this cross section here is just a piece of steel tubing that works as a bushing over the bolt. I definitely think we can do better than that. I know this is upside down, but this is really only held together with 5 nuts and bolts. It's a very simple design. We're going to go ahead and take that apart too, starting with the shocks. At this point, I have finally found my first stripped out and very rusted bolts, and those are the lower shock bolts. The top one came out, so I'm just going to take the swing arm off and get this thing away from the frame. Considering this thing's age and what it's probably been through, this is in really good shape. You can see the axle hangers are a little bent, and this ear for the shock mount is bent. It's probably bent numerous times and knocked back. This bolt is actually straight, and this cross section is. Both of these shocks are bent, and we will not be reusing those. So we're going to go ahead and put this in our box for now. Alright, with things right side up, you can see we're down to basically a bare frame. Next, we're going to clean this thing up real good, because we're going to have to address some old repairs and make some new ones before we go any further. Well, I have a lot to do, and the parts are piling up from my friends at ombwarehouse.com and Grey Goat Garage. Stay tuned, guys, because this is definitely a work in progress. Have a good night. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.